The great hall of the Galactic Council felt cold and empty. Ambassador Zekthara looked around at the worried faces of representatives from 47 different worlds. His blue skin was pale with stress. The meeting today was about the most dangerous topic in the galaxy: humans. "We need to discuss the old warnings," Zekthara said. His voice echoed in the massive chamber. "Our ancestors left us clear records. They said humans were the most dangerous species they ever met." Admiral Quolix stood up from his seat. The large reptilian warrior's scales were dark green with anger. "Those records are 300 years old," he said. "The humans are gone. They left peacefully and never came back." "But what if they do come back?" asked Dr. Thexani. The small, insect-like scientist's wings buzzed with worry. "The old records say humans could learn faster than any species. They could adapt to anything. They could become anything." Zekthara nodded slowly. "That's exactly why we're here. 3 centuries ago, humans lived on 12 worlds in this sector. They had small ships and simple weapons. When the Council asked them to move to make room for expanding empires, they just left. They didn't fight," added Admiral Quolix. "They didn't argue. They packed up everything and disappeared into deep space. We thought they were weak. The hegemony took their worlds," said Representative Morgax. "Beautiful planets, all of them. Rich soil, clean water, perfect for farming. But when our colonists arrived, empty," whispered Dr. Thexani. "Completely empty. No cities, no roads, no sign anyone ever lived there. Like the humans had never existed." Zekthara pulled up a holographic display. It showed the 12 human worlds from 300 years ago. "Our scientists still can't explain it. How do you remove all traces of civilization from 12 planets? How do you do it so perfectly that nothing remains?" "Magic," joked Admiral Quolix, but nobody laughed. "The Vorthan Empire expanded into those systems," continued Zekthara. "The hegemony built military bases there. The Trade Federation set up shipping routes. Everyone got rich from the old human territories. So why are we talking about this now?" asked Morgax. Zekthara's expression grew very serious. "Show them," he said to his aide. The holographic display changed. Now it showed recent sensor readings from deep space monitoring stations. Strange energy signatures appeared on the screen. They were massive and moving fast. 3 days ago, our sensors detected these readings coming from the direction of human space. The energy levels are impossible. Dr. Thexani leaned forward to study the data. "These readings are wrong. Nothing can generate this much energy. Not even our biggest star destroyers." "That's what we thought too," said Zekthara. "Until this morning. The display changed again. This time it showed a small ship approaching the neutral world where they were meeting. The ship was sleek and white, with curves that looked almost alive. One human ship has requested permission to dock," Zekthara announced. "The first human contact in 3 centuries. The council chamber fell completely silent. Admiral Quolix's scales turned pale yellow with fear. "Just one ship?" "Just one ship, with one person aboard. He says his name is Dr. Min-Jun Park. He wants to speak to the council about humanity returning to their old territories." "This could be a trap," said Admiral Quolix. "Send a fleet to capture the ship." "We tried," Zekthara admitted. "Our tractor beams can't lock onto it. Our scanners can't penetrate its hull. It's like the ship exists and doesn't exist at the same time." Representative Morgax stood up. "So what does this human want?" "He wants to talk. He says humans are ready to come home." The massive doors of the council chamber opened with a soft whisper. A figure walked in alone. He was tall for a human, with black hair and kind eyes. He wore simple clothes that looked normal but seemed to shimmer slightly in the light. Dr. Min-Jun Park walked calmly to the center of the chamber. He looked around at all the worried alien faces and smiled warmly. "Hello," he said in perfect galactic standard. "Thank you for seeing me. I know this is unexpected." Admiral Quolix jumped to his feet. "How did you get past security? This chamber is protected by the best shields in the galaxy." Minjun's smile grew wider. "I asked nicely." "Impossible," muttered Dr. Thexani. "The security system doesn't respond to verbal requests." "Perhaps your security system is more polite than you thought," Minjun said gently. He turned to face Zekthara. "Ambassador, I come with a simple request. Humanity would like to return to our old homes." "Your old homes belong to other species now," said Zekthara carefully. "They have been settled for 3 centuries. "I understand," Minjun nodded. "We don't wish to displace anyone. We simply want what was always ours." "And if we refuse?" asked Admiral Quolix, his hand moving to his weapon. Minjun noticed the movement, but didn't seem worried. "Then, we will be disappointed. But we will find another way." Minjun noticed the problem. "But, are you threatening us?" Admiral Quolix's voice was loud and angry. "Not at all," Minjun replied softly. "Humans don't threaten. We simply—" Dr. Thexani studied the human carefully. "You seem very confident for someone who comes alone to face the combined might of the galaxy." Minjun looked at the small scientist with genuine warmth. "Dr. Thexani, isn't it? I read your papers on quantum biology. Brilliant work." The insect-like scientist's wings stopped buzzing in surprise. "You know my research? Humans have been watching and learning," Minjun said. "We never really left. We just went somewhere else for a while." "Where?" demanded Zekthara. Minjun's eyes sparkled with something that might have been amusement. "Somewhere we could grow. Somewhere we could become what we needed to be." "And what did you become?" asked Admiral Quolix suspiciously. The human diplomat spread his hands peacefully. "Better," he said simply. "Much better." "Prove it," challenged Admiral Quolix. Minjun tilted his head thoughtfully. "Very well. Send your strongest ships to meet mine. See what 3 centuries of human growth can accomplish." "This is madness," whispered Representative Morgax. "1 ship against the hegemony fleet?" Minjun heard him and smiled. "Oh, I should mention, I didn't come in just 1 ship." The chamber's displays suddenly lit up with new sensor readings. Hundreds of energy signatures appeared around the station. No, not hundreds. Thousands. All invisible, until that moment. "I came with friends," Minjun said cheerfully. "Would you like to meet them?" Admiral Quolix stared at the sensor displays in disbelief. Thousands of energy signatures surrounded the station. They had appeared from nothing, as if they had always been there, waiting. "Impossible," he whispered. "Our sensors would have detected them." Dr. Minjun Park stood calmly in the center of the council chamber. He looked completely relaxed while every alien representative was filled with panic. "Your sensors are very good," Minjun said politely. "We simply learned to be better." "This is some kind of trick," Admiral Quolix snarled. He activated his personal communicator. "Battle Group 7. Report to coordinates immediately. Full weapons ready." "Admiral, wait," Ambassador Zekthara called out. "Let's not start a war we might not win." "Win?" Admiral Quolix laughed harshly. "These are humans. Weak little creatures who ran away 3 centuries ago. My flagship alone could destroy a dozen of their old ships." Minjun watched the conversation with sad eyes. "Admiral, I understand your confidence. Your ships are impressive. But perhaps we could demonstrate the difference without anyone getting hurt? You want a demonstration?" Admiral Quolix's scales turned deep red with anger. "Fine. 3 of my best warships will show you what real power looks like." Within minutes, 3 massive hegemony battleships moved into position near the station. Each ship was over 2 kilometers long and bristled with enough weapons to destroy small moons. "Those are Devastator-class ships," Dr. Thexani whispered to Representative Morgax. Each one has firepower equal to an entire planet's defense force. Min Jun touched a small device on his wrist. Captain Kim, would you mind showing our new friends your ship? Space near the station shimmered like water. Suddenly, a human vessel appeared. It was beautiful in a way that made the alien warships look crude and ugly. The hull was pure white and seemed to flow like liquid metal. There were no visible weapons or engines, but it moved with impossible grace. "This is Captain Yonseo Kim aboard the Harmony's Edge," came a warm female voice over the communication system. "Hello, everyone. It's nice to meet you." Admiral Quolix stared at the human ship on his displays. It was much smaller than his battleships, maybe 1/10 their size. "That's it? That's what we're supposed to fear?" "Size isn't everything, Admiral," Min Jun said gently. "Destroy it," Admiral Quolix ordered his ships. "Full power. Show these humans what happens when they challenge the hegemony." The 3 battleships fired everything they had. Plasma cannons, fusion missiles, particle beams, and gravity bombs all struck the human ship at the same time. The energy release was so massive it lit up space like a small sun. When the light faded, the human ship hung in space completely undamaged. There wasn't even a scratch on its beautiful hull. "How?" gasped Dr. Thexani. "Nothing can survive that much firepower." Captain Kim's voice came over the speakers again, still cheerful and kind. "Thank you for the demonstration. Now, let me show you something we learned." The human ship began to move. But it didn't move like normal ships. It danced through space, flowing around the massive battleships like water around rocks. It moved faster than light but somehow stayed in normal space at the same time. "Impossible physics," muttered Dr. Thexani. "You can't do faster than light maneuvers in normal space." "We found a way," Min Jun said simply. The human ship continued its impossible dance. As it moved, something beautiful happened. Music began playing on all communication channels. It was soft and peaceful, like a lullaby sung by stars. "What is this?" demanded Admiral Quolix. "Music," said Captain Kim. "We thought you might like it. Your crews seem very stressed." The hegemony battleships tried to track the human vessel with their weapons, but it was like trying to catch smoke with bare hands. The ship was everywhere and nowhere, moving in ways that broke every law of physics. Then, without warning, all 3 battleships went dark. Their engines stopped. Their weapons powered down. Their shields collapsed. They drifted helplessly in space like giant metal coffins. "What did you do to my ships?" Admiral Quolix screamed. "Nothing harmful," Captain Kim replied. "We just asked their systems to take a little nap. Your crews are perfectly safe." "Asked?" Dr. Thexani leaned forward. "You can communicate with ship systems?" "We can communicate with everything," Min Jun explained. "Machines, computers, even the atoms in your hull plating. When you understand the universe deeply enough, everything wants to help." On the displays, small shuttlecraft were already launching from nearby stations. They moved toward the disabled hegemony ships. "Those are rescue shuttles," said Representative Morgax in confusion. "But we didn't send any rescue shuttles." "Great. We did," Min Jun said. "Your crews will need food and fresh air while their ships are powered down. We wouldn't want them to be uncomfortable." Admiral Quolix watched in shock as human rescue teams began docking with his battleships. His crews were being helped by the enemy they had just tried to destroy. "Why?" he asked quietly. Min Jun's expression became very gentle. "Because that's what humans do. We protect people, even when they try to hurt us." Captain Kim's ship had stopped its impossible dance, and now floated peacefully near the station. "Admiral, would you like me to fix your ships now? I can have them working again in a few minutes." "Fix them?" Admiral Quolix couldn't understand. "You disabled them without firing a shot. You could destroy them just as easily." "Yes," Min Jun nodded. "But destruction is the old way. We learned a better way. What way is that? Asked Ambassador Zekthara. The way of harmony, Minjun replied. When you truly understand something, you don't need to fight it. You can work with it instead. Dr. Thexani's wings were buzzing rapidly with excitement. You're talking about fundamental force manipulation. Direct interaction with quantum fields. The math alone would take our best scientists thousands of years to work out. We had good teachers, Minjun said mysteriously. Who taught you? Demanded Admiral Quolix. The universe itself, Minjun replied. On the displays, the human rescue shuttles were already returning to their ships. The crews of the disabled battleships had been fed, given medical attention, and made comfortable. Some of them were even laughing and talking with their human rescuers. I don't understand, said Representative Morgax. You could have killed them all. Instead, you helped them. That's the difference 3 centuries made, Minjun explained. We used to think strength meant the ability to destroy. Now we know strength means the ability to protect. Captain Kim's voice came over the speakers one more time. Admiral Quolix, your ships are ready to come back online. Should I reactivate their systems? Admiral Quolix looked around the council chamber. Every alien representative was staring at him. His own crews were safe because the enemy had chosen to save them instead of destroy them. Yes, he said quietly. Please fix our ships. Done, Captain Kim replied cheerfully. Have a wonderful day, everyone. It was nice meeting you all. The 3 hegemony battleships came back to life. All their systems worked perfectly, maybe even better than before. Minjun looked around at the shocked faces in the council chamber. Now, do you understand? Humans didn't return to conquer. We returned to help. Ambassador Zekthara leaned back in his chair. His blue skin was very pale. What else did humans learn in 3 centuries? Minjun smiled. It was a warm, happy smile that somehow made everyone in the chamber feel a little safer. Everything, he said simply. The council chamber was so quiet that Ambassador Zekthara could hear his own heart beating. Dr. Minjun Park stood calmly in the center, waiting patiently while the alien representatives tried to process what they had just seen. We need to know, Zekthara said finally. What did humanity become during those 3 centuries? Minjun nodded thoughtfully. That's a fair question. Would you like me to show you? I get it. Well, buddy. Well, buddy. He touched the small device on his wrist again. The air in the chamber began to shimmer, and suddenly, a human woman appeared. She looked real enough to touch, but she was translucent, like a ghost made of light. Hello, everyone, the woman said with a warm smile. I'm Professor Sujin Lee. I'm speaking to you from New Earth, about 40,000 light years from here. Dr. Thexani's wings started buzzing frantically. 40,000 light years? That's impossible. Even our fastest communication systems can't reach that far instantly. Professor Lee laughed gently. Distance became less important once we learned to work with space-time directly. But let me answer your real question. What did humans become? She gestured, and the air around her filled with images. They showed beautiful worlds with impossible cities that seemed to grow like living things. Humans walked among buildings that changed shape as needed, while the sky above showed not one sun but multiple stars arranged in perfect harmony. 3 centuries ago, we left because we realized something important. Professor Lee continued. We were thinking too small. Too small? Asked Representative Morgax. You had 12 worlds. That's a significant territory. 12 worlds in one small corner of one galaxy, Professor Lee replied. We decided to think bigger. The images changed to show vast constructions in space. Not ships or stations, but structures so large they surrounded entire star systems. They pulsed with gentle light and seemed to be alive. We learned to build with dark matter, Professor Lee explained. It let us create things your current physics says are impossible. Admiral Quolix leaned forward. You're saying you can manipulate dark matter? That's purely theoretical. Our best scientists think it might be possible in another 1,000 years. Your scientists are very smart, Professor Lee said kindly. But they're still thinking in terms of taking and controlling. We learned to ask instead. Ask. Dr. Thexani was taking rapid notes. Ask what? Ask the universe for permission. Minjun answered from the chamber floor. When you approach reality with respect instead of force, it becomes much more cooperative. Professor Lee nodded. Exactly. But that's just the beginning. The real change was internal. The images shifted again. Now they showed humans. But not quite like the humans the aliens remembered. These people seemed to glow with inner light. Their eyes held depths that spoke of vast knowledge and experience. We learned to improve ourselves, Professor Lee continued. Not just our technology, but our minds, our bodies, our spirits. Genetic modification? Asked Dr. Thexani. Much more than that, Professor Lee replied. We eliminated aging, disease, and death itself. But more importantly, we learned to connect. She gestured again. And the images showed humans across multiple worlds, suddenly pausing in their activities and smiling at the same moment. As if they had heard the same wonderful joke. Collective consciousness? Ambassador Zekthara asked in amazement. Collective wisdom, Professor Lee corrected. We can share thoughts, feelings, and knowledge instantly across any distance. But each person remains completely individual. Think of it as a conversation that never ends. Admiral Quolix stood up abruptly. That sounds like a hive mind. Loss of individual identity. Not at all, Minjun said gently. Before Admiral Quolix could answer, he suddenly felt something amazing. For just a moment, he could sense the thoughts and feelings of every human in the chamber and beyond. But instead of losing himself, he felt more himself than ever. He could feel their love, their hope, their genuine desire to help everyone around them. The sensation lasted only a second, but when it ended, Admiral Quolix was crying. What did you do to me? He whispered. We let you feel what it's like to be human, Professor Lee said softly. To know that you're never truly alone, but also never less than who you are. Dr. Thexani was writing so fast her stylus was smoking. The implications are staggering. Shared knowledge across light years instantly. No information barriers. No secrets. No lies, Minjun added. No misunderstandings. When you can truly feel what another person feels, it becomes impossible to hurt them intentionally. But surely you must have conflicts, said Representative Morgax. Disagreements. Wars. Professor Lee looked sad for a moment. We had those things once. But when you can feel everyone's pain as your own, war becomes unthinkable. The images changed again to show human cities where different species lived together in perfect harmony. Creatures from dozens of worlds worked and played side by side, all of them clearly happy and healthy. We found others, Professor Lee continued. Species that were dying out, worlds that were failing. We helped them. We saved them. How many? Asked Ambassador Zekthara. Currently, the Human Alliance includes over 3,000 different species across 47 galaxies. The silence that followed was so complete it seemed to ring like a bell. 47 galaxies? Dr. Thexani's voice was barely a whisper. That's impossible. We learned to travel between dimensions, Professor Lee explained casually. It turns out the universe is much bigger and more wonderful than any of us imagined. Admiral Quolix sat down heavily. Your population? Currently about 4 trillion humans and our friends from other species, Professor Lee replied. We could have made it larger, but we decided quality of life was more important than quantity. 4 trillion, Representative Morgax repeated in shock. And they're all connected? All connected, all individual, all free. Minjun confirmed. We learned that true strength comes from unity, not uniformity. Professor Lee's image began to fade slightly. I should mention something else. We never really left this galaxy. What do you mean? Asked Ambassador Zekthara. Some of us stayed. Professor Lee replied. We've been watching and helping quietly. For 3 centuries. Every time your species faced extinction events, mysterious accidents prevented them. Every time your wars threatened to destroy whole worlds, the weapons mysteriously failed at crucial moments. The alien representatives looked at each other with growing understanding and fear. The plague of Centauri that killed itself out after just one day, Doctor, Texani whispered. The solar storm that should have destroyed the Vorthon homeworld but somehow missed. The hegemony's planet-killer weapon that exploded during its first test. We couldn't let our neighbors destroy themselves, Minjun said simply. That wouldn't have been very neighborly. Ambassador Zekthara leaned forward. Why reveal yourselves now? Why come back officially? Professor Lee smiled, and it was the most beautiful expression any of the aliens had ever seen. Because it's time. Time for everyone to join the larger conversation. Time for all species to become what they can be. She gestured one final time, and the images showed the most incredible sight of all. Thousands of worlds, where every form of life lived in perfect harmony, where technology served wisdom, and where every being was free to become their best possible self. This is what we're offering, Professor Lee said. Not conquest, not surrender, partnership. The chance to grow beyond what any of us could become alone. Her image faded away, leaving the aliens staring at Minjun Park, who smiled at them with infinite patience. So, he said gently, would you like to be friends? The emergency council session began 3 hours after Professor Lee's message ended. Ambassador Zekthara looked around at faces filled with fear, anger, and confusion. The revelation that humans had evolved into something beyond imagination had shaken every species to its core. We have to act, Admiral Quolix declared, though his voice shook slightly. 4 trillion humans controlling 47 galaxies. They could wipe us out without thinking about it. They've had 3 centuries to wipe us out, pointed out Dr. Thexani. Instead, they saved us from disasters we didn't even know were happening. That makes them more dangerous, not less, argued Representative Morgax. They've been manipulating us for centuries, controlling our fate without our knowledge or permission. Dr. Minjun Park sat quietly in the center of the chamber. He had been given a chair and some water, and he waited patiently while the aliens debated his species' fate. The human is still here, Admiral Quolix said, pointing at Minjun. He could be listening to everything we say. I am listening, Minjun agreed politely. But I'm not recording or transmitting. This is your discussion to have. See? Admiral Quolix's scales turned dark red. He admits he's spying on us. I admit I have ears, Minjun replied gently. But if you'd prefer privacy, I can wait outside. Ambassador Zekthara raised a hand for silence. Dr. Park can stay. We have nothing to hide. He looked around the chamber. The question before us is simple. How do we respond to humanity's return? With overwhelming force, Admiral Quolix stated firmly. Every species in the galaxy must unite against this threat. We need to strike before they can bring their full power to bear. You want to start a war with beings who can manipulate space-time and travel between dimensions? Dr. Thexani's wings buzzed with disbelief. That's suicide. It's survival, Admiral Quolix shot back. They're too powerful to exist. No species should have that kind of ability. Minjun looked up from his water. Admiral, may I ask you something? Quolix glared at him suspiciously. What? If humans wanted to conquer the galaxy, why would we ask permission? Why not simply take what we want? Maybe you want us to surrender willingly. Maybe it's easier to rule willing slaves than fight rebellions. Minjun's expression became very sad. Admiral, I understand your fear. But humans stopped wanting to rule anyone a long time ago. Ruling others means being responsible for their happiness, and we learned that's impossible. People have to choose their own happiness. Pretty words, scoffed Representative Morgax. But words are cheap. Then let me offer something more valuable, said a new voice. Everyone turned as another human appeared in the chamber. This one was taller than Minjun, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold the depth of space itself. He wore simple clothes but moved with the confident grace of someone who had never known fear. I'm Commander Hyun Woo Choi, the newcomer said with a slight bow. I speak for the human military. Admiral Quolix jumped to his feet. How did you get in here? Security would have detected any ship approaching. I walked, Commander Choi replied simply. From New Earth. It's a pleasant day for a stroll across 40,000 light years. Dr. Thexani stared at him. You walked? Through space? Through dimensional space. We've learned to step between realities. Distance is just a suggestion now. Admiral Quolix's hand moved to his weapon. Another demonstration of human superiority. Are you here to threaten us? Actually, I'm here to offer surrender, Commander Choi said calmly. The chamber fell completely silent. Surrender? Ambassador Zekthara repeated. If our presence causes this much fear and anger, perhaps it would be better for everyone. If humans simply left again, we could withdraw to our distant galaxies and leave this one to you. This is a trick, Admiral Quolix snarled. You're trying to make us feel guilty. I'm trying to prevent unnecessary suffering, Commander Choi replied. If our return causes war, then our return was a mistake. He touched a device on his belt. And suddenly the chamber's displays lit up with tactical information. Fleet movements, weapon deployments, military communications from across the galaxy. 50,000 ships from 12 species are moving toward human space, Commander Choi noted sadly. All armed with your most powerful weapons. All prepared to fight to the death against an enemy they cannot possibly defeat. Admiral Quolix's scales went pale. How do you know our fleet movements? We know everything, Commander Choi said gently. Every communication, every order, every frightened thought of every soldier preparing for battle. But knowing doesn't mean we want to use that knowledge against you. Representative Morgax stood up. Then why show us? Why prove you can spy on us? To show you that if we wanted to hurt you, you couldn't stop us. But hurting you is the last thing we want. Commander Choi walked to the center of the chamber and sat down cross-legged on the floor. I have a proposal. Send your fleets. Attack our space with everything you have. See what happens when you strike at beings who have learned to transcend war itself. You want us to attack you? Dr. Thexani asked in confusion. I want you to understand, Commander Choi replied. Sometimes the only way to show someone that violence is pointless is to let them try violence and fail safely. Admiral Quolix activated his communicator. All fleet commanders. This is Admiral Quolix. Attack formation. Target the human territories. Show them what happens when they threaten the galaxy. Admiral, wait. Ambassador Zekthara called out. No more waiting, Admiral Quolix declared. No more talking. It's time to act. Commander Choi closed his eyes and touched the device on his belt again. Captain Yeon Seo Kim, please prepare for visitors. Activate the Harmony Protocol. Set all weapons to demonstration mode. Minjun looked up from his water. You should watch the displays. This will be educational. The chamber's screens showed space around the human territories. Empty space, or so it seemed. Then the attacking fleets dropped out of faster-than-light travel and prepared for battle. 50,000 ships spread across 100 light-years of space, enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. All of it focused on the empty regions where humans had once lived. I don't see any human ships, said Dr. Thexani. Look closer, suggested Commander Choi. Suddenly, space itself seemed to come alive. What had appeared empty now revealed millions upon millions of human vessels. They surrounded the alien fleet completely, appearing from nowhere like stars being born. But something was strange about the human ships. They glowed with soft, beautiful light. Instead of weapons pointed at the aliens, they projected gorgeous patterns that danced through space like aurora. Magnificent, whispered Dr. Thexani. They're not weapons. They're art. Every human ship is also a work of art, Commander Choi explained. We learned that things of beauty heal souls as well as bodies. Admiral Quolix stared at the display in shock. There are millions of them. How many ships do humans have? As many as we need, Commander Choi replied. We learn to grow them rather than build them. They're alive. In a way, they want to protect and heal. On the displays, the alien fleet began firing. Massive energy weapons struck the human ships, but the attacks simply vanished into streams of harmless light that painted beautiful colors across space. Our weapons aren't working, Admiral Quolix said in a hollow voice. They're working perfectly, Commander Choi assured him. Your weapons create energy. Our ships turn that energy into art. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is lost. The human ships began to move, dancing around the alien fleet in impossible patterns. As they moved, they sang. The music was so beautiful that several alien crew members aboard the attacking ships began to cry. Why? Admiral Quolix asked quietly. Why make it beautiful? Why not just destroy us and be done with it? Commander Choi opened his eyes and looked directly at the Admiral. Because you matter. Every life matters. Every species has something unique and wonderful to contribute. We would rather die than destroy something precious. Then you're fools, Admiral Quolix said, but his voice held no conviction. Perhaps, Commander Choi agreed, but we're fools who learn to transform enemies into friends, hatred into love, and war into dance. On the displays, something impossible was happening. The alien weapons had stopped firing, but not because they were disabled. The crews were simply stopping, watching, listening to the music, and staring at the beauty surrounding them. Your people are surrendering, Ambassador Zekthara observed. No, Commander Choi corrected. They're choosing. For the first time in their lives, they're choosing beauty over destruction. Admiral Quolix slumped in his chair. What happens now? What happens now? Commander Choi smiled, and it was the kindest expression the Admiral had ever seen. Now, we begin again. All of us together, building something worth building. 6 months later, Ambassador Zekthara stood in what used to be the Galactic Council chambers. The room looked the same, but felt completely different. Where once there had been tension and fear, now there was hope. Dr. Minjun Park sat at a curved table that somehow accommodated representatives from over 100 different species. Next to him sat Admiral Quolix, though the old warrior looked younger and happier than anyone had seen him in decades. The transformation of the hegemony homeworld is complete, Quolix reported with obvious pride. The atmospheric processors humans installed have turned our desert planet into a garden. Our people are crying tears of joy for the first time in generations. The medical stations are working perfectly too, added Dr. Thexani. The genetic plague that was killing my species has been completely eliminated. Human healers saved over 2 billion lives in just 3 months. Minjun smiled warmly. We're just happy we could help. Every species deserves to thrive. The chamber's displays showed images from across the galaxy. Worlds that had been dying were now green and healthy. Species that had been at war for centuries were working together on shared projects. Children from dozens different worlds played together in space stations designed to accommodate every type of environment. The education centers are the most popular, reported Representative Morgax. My people can't believe they're allowed to learn about technology they always thought was impossible. Knowledge belongs to everyone, Minjun replied. We learned long ago that keeping secrets only makes everyone weaker. Ambassador Zekthara called for attention. We have one final matter to discuss before we officially establish the new Galactic Alliance. President Song wants to address us directly. The air in the center of the chamber began to shimmer. A human woman appeared, but unlike Professor Lee's hologram, this one seemed solid and real. President Jihye Song looked to be in her 30s, with kind eyes and a presence that made everyone feel immediately welcome. Hello, friends, she said with a bow. I'm speaking to you from Unity Station above New Earth. Thank you for allowing humanity to return home. Thank you for making it home for everyone, Ambassador Zekthara replied. The changes you've brought to our worlds are beyond anything we imagined possible. President Song smiled. We've barely started. Today marks the beginning of something much greater. She gestured, and the displays around the chamber showed new images. Massive construction projects in space, where ships from hundreds of species work together building something enormous and beautiful. The Gateway Project, President Song explained. Together, we're building bridges to other galaxies, not for conquest or resource gathering, but for meeting new friends. Dr. Thexani leaned forward excitedly. Other galaxies means other species we haven't met yet. Other forms of life. Other ways of thinking. Exactly, President Song nodded. The universe is vast and full of wonders. We want to share those wonders with everyone. What about species that might not be friendly? Asked a representative from the Crystalline Empire. What if we meet beings who want to fight? President Song's expression became very gentle. Then we'll show them what we showed you. That there are better ways to live than through fear and violence. Admiral Quolix stood up. I have something I need to say. His voice was steady and strong. 6 months ago, I tried to start a war with humanity. I was terrified of your power and convinced you wanted to destroy us. You were trying to protect your people, Minjun said kindly. But I was wrong about everything, Quolix continued. Humans didn't want to conquer. You wanted to heal. You took races that were dying and made them strong. You took enemies and made them family. He looked around the chamber at representatives who had once been bitter enemies and were now close friends. My own people were slowly poisoning themselves with industrial pollution. Our world was becoming unlivable. Humans fixed it in weeks and asked for nothing in return. Healthy neighbors make everyone safer, President Song said simply. A galaxy where everyone thrives is a galaxy where everyone benefits. The resource-sharing agreements are unprecedented, added Representative Morgax. Humans have provided advanced technology to every species freely. No trade requirements, no political demands. Technology is just tools, Minjun explained. Tools should serve life, not control it. Dr. Thexani activated her data pad. I've been studying the changes across the galaxy. Since humans returned, we've eliminated poverty on 47 worlds, ended 12 ongoing wars, cured diseases affecting billions of people, and restored ecosystems on over 100 planets. The numbers are impressive, President Song agreed. But the real success is what we can't measure in numbers. What do you mean? Asked Ambassador Zekthara. Hope, President Song replied. For the first time in millennia, people across the galaxy believe their children will have better lives than they do. The displays changed to show children from dozens of different species learning together in bright, beautiful schools. Human teachers worked alongside alien educators, sharing knowledge that had once been restricted to the most advanced civilizations. The children adapt fastest, observed Minjun. They don't carry the old fears and prejudices. To them, working with other species is natural and fun. Which brings us to our final proposal, President Song said. The establishment of the Universal Peace Corps. Peace Corps? Admiral Quolix asked. Volunteer teams of mixed species who travel to areas of conflict or need, President Song explained. Not soldiers, but healers and teachers and builders. When problems arise, instead of sending warships, we send help. Every species would contribute members? Asked Dr. Thexani. Every species that wants to, Minjun confirmed. Participation is always voluntary. But we've found that most people want to help others when they know their help will be welcomed. The chamber fell quiet as representatives considered the proposal. It was so different from how the galaxy had operated for thousands of years. What about the old territorial disputes? Asked Representative Morgax. The hegemony still claims 17 systems that belong to the Trade Federation. Esev. There's 76 on 17. There's no more. Admiral Quolix and the Trade Federation representative looked at each other and laughed. We're building a joint research station in those systems. Admiral Quolix said. Turns out they're perfect for studying stellar formation. Much more valuable as science centers than military bases. Amazing what becomes possible when you stop fighting over resources and start sharing them, added the Trade Federation representative. President Song clapped her hands together. Then, we're ready for the final step. The air around her filled with golden light, and suddenly she wasn't just a projection. She was physically present in the chamber, having somehow traveled 40,000 light years instantly. The first official session of the Universal Alliance begins now, she announced. Together, we'll explore the cosmos, not as conquerors, but as friends. We'll meet new species not to subjugate them, but to learn from them. We'll build a civilization based on cooperation instead of competition. Dr. Thexani was crying tears of joy. My species spent so long believing we were alone in our galaxy. Now we know. We're part of something infinite. We all are, President Song agreed. Every being, every species, every world has something precious to contribute. Our job is to help each other discover what that is. Ambassador Zekthara stood up. I call for a vote. All in favor of establishing the Universal Alliance, with humanity as our guides to the greater universe. Every hand, claw, tentacle, and manipulator appendage in the chamber rose in unanimous agreement. Then it's official, President Song declared. Welcome to forever, everyone. Through the chamber's windows, they could see the first gateway opening in space. Beyond it lay other galaxies, other worlds, other friends waiting to be discovered. Where will we go first? Asked Admiral Quolix, his voice full of wonder. Everywhere, Minjun replied with a smile. The universe is vast, beautiful, and full of people who need to know they're not alone. President Song raised her hand, and suddenly every being in the chamber could feel what the humans had shared with Admiral Quolix months earlier. They felt connected to every other living thing in the galaxy, part of a vast conversation of minds and hearts united in purpose. This is how we'll travel to the stars, President Song said softly. Not as separate species competing for resources, but as one family exploring our infinite home. Outside the windows, ships from 100 worlds began moving toward the gateway, carrying crews of mixed species all working together. They moved not as conquerors heading into the unknown, but as ambassadors of hope carrying a simple message to whatever lay beyond. The message was simple. You are not alone. You are valued. You are welcome. And for the first time in galactic history, that message was completely true.